Hello and welcome to Heroes of the Mist, here on twitch.tv/RPG Research. I'm your host and game master, Hawk Robinson, and this is the continuing saga of a bunch of heroes in the multiverse setting, Worlds of Beru. In this case, we are running 1st edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons in a homebrew campaign. Mostly the core rules with all the add-on books and a few Dragon Magazine editions, but a few house rules here and there. You can check out the campaign setting on Beru, BERU.world. You can check out Heroes of the Mist on mistheroes.com. And, of course, RPG Research at rpgresearch.com. This is an audience interactive show, so while you are watching, if you are in the Twitch channel, you can automatically gain hero points. If you say nice things and send referrals and links and Twitter feeds and such, tell the moderators and they can give you bonus hero points. And if you donate, you can get a whole bushel of extra bonus hero points. You can check that out on mistheroes.com and click on audience interaction and see what all the different choices are. What you can do with those points is then have events nearly real time affect the players in the actual game. I'll shoehorn it in there as quickly as I can without it, being too disruptive. And if it's an NPC or creature, we'll try to match it to your username if at all possible. GM's discretion, of course. So check that out. And last week I was out of town at PAX Unplugged. I was speaking on a couple of panels there in Philadelphia, and it was a wonderful time. We got to meet some terrific people. And the Friday one was nearly packed. We had a good-sized room with a lot of people in there. The Saturday one was not quite so full, but still, it was great audience interaction. All day long, Friday and Saturday, just talking to people nonstop. A lot of time talking to the Dots RPG project for accessibility, stuff like Braille dice and such. They wrote a wonderful blog post and I posted in our Discord channel about their experience, and they spent a couple of paragraphs just talking about what we were talking about. And that relationship may have some good synergy in the future because they're trying to make role-playing games more accessible, and we're trying to do the same. And they're doing it through manufacturing, we're doing it through process. So we're building a good connection there. Wonderful time on the panels with Dr. Rafael Bocamatzo, Dr. B out of Seattle, and Adam. I'm one of the Adams from Game to Grow. And Megan, Dr. Meg Connell, and anyway, I'd have to look at the names. Some of the others I didn't know previously. They did record the Friday one. It's unclear if they recorded the Saturday one. I didn't see any cameras, so I at the last minute whipped out my phone, and I have a bad audio recording of the Saturday one mostly. So hopefully that'll all get pieced together, and we'll have that audio and/or video available in coming weeks. Also, Dr. Megan Connell did a quick 10-minute interview of me for her little podcast that she does, vidcast that she does.
Oh, good.
So that'll be coming in the future. So wonderful time there. It was great meeting everybody, and our Patreon supporters are going to get early access to those videos and audio and other things, explaining them all the wonderful things that were going on. Meanwhile, while I was out of town, John substituted for me while I was away. And
did very well.
I didn't realize how rusty he was on 1st edition. I feel bad that I put that on him, not realizing how much 1st edition had. When was the last time you played 1st edition?
About a year ago.
Where was that? Was that?
That was when we were doing our little test.
Oh, that wasn't a year ago. That was just 6 months ago.
No, it must have been a year.
It feels longer.
I'm sure it's closer to 12 years ago.
That was like April, May, June.
It would have been a little chaotic regardless.
Right. But I understand. No, I mean, it's and then plus handing it over. And what was it? You said there was was it hit points I forgot to give you or something? You said
none of the...
had hit points.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I have an easy formula for that. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that. So usually the lower end ones, I just do hit die times 5. And then, just average out the hit points, and then maybe plus or minus 1. Just really easy, just boom, 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 boom. And then the mid ones, hit die times 6, and then the upper ones hit die times 8. It just makes it really easy, because they're 10-sided hit die, but it just makes it really easy to average that out if they're the more exceptional, less exceptional.
I gave everybody 6 hit points per level.
Yeah, so that would have been hit. That would have been the mid-range one.
Yep.
So that's fine. Now I did not finish watching the last 20 minutes of the video. I ran out of time here. So let's recap what you guys. So you guys were there waiting in the above in the ravine, and the main thing I want you guys to learn from this scenario is how deadly surprise is in this game.
Pretty deadly.
It is, if you do it right, and if you get enough of an advantage, it should give you the potential to take out a far superior force. If you guys had tried to fight these guys straight on the ground, toe to toe, they would have just trampled you. They would have squashed you guys. You know, Karn and Dranera would have had to come into the picture to help you guys. They would have completely tromped you. The leader was what, 9th level? Something like that?
Right.
Yeah.
You
Would
mean-
have squashed you guys.
You mean
The pincushion?
Commander Pincushion?
Yeah.
The one that he kept
But-
shooting at while he was still dead.
Taking advantage of terrain, using good tactical, Dan loves that, using strong tactical advantage and surprise makes a weaker force have a huge advantage over a superior force.
Well, hence the American Revolution.
Yep.
Only way we won was
'Cause
by adopting Native American war techniques.
Exactly. And
French aid.
One country's rebels is another country's terrorists, right? So the key thing I want you guys to learn from this is, as you saw happen to them, keep that in mind. If you guys ever get surprised in an ambush situation, that could be all there is. The group could be wiped out like that in one round, because you get those extra surprise segments and all those advantages.
Yeah.
Basically, it's supposed to emulate a Robin Hood versus the sheriff type situation. Just complete overwhelming force if you're set up and you
Except
plan
Robin
it
Hood was more
properly.
merciful.
What's that?
Except Robin Hood was more merciful.
True. That is true. But the point is, the rules normally, without them shoehorning in what they did with surprise, didn't really accurately reflect the advantage of a good surprise and tactical setup. And so that's why they kind of shoehorned in what they did, where they made surprise. People call it unbalanced, but they were trying to represent that, hey, if you set up a good surprise, it should be overwhelming. It should be absolutely overwhelming. And depends on how good a surprise, right? Because if you only have one segment of advantage, it's not as much as 3 segments, right?
Oh, God.
Oh my
3
goodness.
segments.
Yeah, which could happen.
Yes.
Right? If one
So
rolls
why
a
don't
1 and you got a 4.
So, real quick, let's go over that situation. How surprise should have been run? Because from my understanding of the rules,
So let me. I made a lot of highlights here. So first of all, feedback on the audio. Is this sounding decent?
Can you hear me?
And John, we really
It
need
is
to get you
now.
closer to the mic because you always sound hollow.
That's just because I'm hollow inside.
You've sounded fine. When Lillian was here, it sounded like her mic was off. Joe and Katie have kind of hit or miss because they're remote, but they're usually okay.
yeah.
But John, for some reason, it sounded like your mic wasn't live. I don't know if the mic. I couldn't tell from the camera if it was back here or what. And Dan, we still have that camera dangling low in front of my camera. That's still got to be raised up. So Adam here's going to get a nice little earthquake going.
No.
John.
Ah! You're falling off
Yeah.
the planet.
So
Then twist Amos
let's
down.
see.
And it's floating down. So, from my understanding of
Crank
that,
that a little tighter. Let's see.
that
And then
surprise
we've got the
segment.
overhead. The overhead camera you did get working. That's good. We're going to get to it.
okay.
So the ring of obfuscation was something that came up. So these are my notes from listening to the video to give you guys a little feedback. So I have some feedback, if she was here, about the ring of obfuscation and how it works, because there was some confusion about how that worked. And it was meant to be kind of vague, right?
So the obfuscation is for the rules, not the effect.
Yeah. If you want, maybe tape it to that post. Like, take some tape. Like, once you get in
Gaffer's
position,
tape.
just tape it against, I've got duct tape floating around. Whatever. There's masking tape right over there. I don't care what you use. Straight ahead to your right. Don't turn right. On
Where
that
it is right
spin
now is
spool
out
right
of
there.
camera
Just
shot.
use some of
I
that.
can just rotate
Yeah, but
it.
it's sagging. It's dropping.
Warmer.
So anyway, I've got info for
Nice
her when
tender.
she's back. Lillian's not here. She is juggling stuff with school. And
Gotta get her priorities straight.
another thing is there was way too much meta discussion, but I understand that was because everybody's unfamiliar with the rules. So We'll let that slide for now because this was your first major combat since a while back, and it was a more complex tactical situation.
And it was our first,
since the escape.
our first trap.
Yes, yeah. So there was a lot there. I just
And
want to
that's-
warn you, I do not allow that much meta discussion between you once combat starts. You can plan all you want before it happens, but once the action happens...
Well, you don't want me to yell at Joe, stop shooting the corpse and get the other guys so we
Well,
get
no, if your character shouts it out, that's one thing, but you guys had a lot of tactical discussion about who does what when in the middle of the combat that wasn't really viable for a conversation, right? It was kind of interesting how much meta discussion was going on there. But you guys were kind of figuring things out.
Yeah, we also, we made this plan a week before that, so half of it was just reminding us.
Right, I understand.
What the plan
but
was.
I just want to warn you for the future.
Yeah.
I will cut you off.
Oh, no,
I was like, nope, that's
It's
meta. Nope, that's meta.
Our characters would have remembered.
Also,
it's only a few hours for them.
Also, a warning: if there is a tie on initiative, right? You roll a d6 for one side of the party and a d6 for now. That didn't apply for the surprise rounds or segments. But once if you get a tie on that, one of the things that's nice to do to represent simultaneous is have each of you, including Joe and Katie, write down what you want to do before you know what anybody else is going to do. So you quickly write down, I'm going to fire my bow at the second guy in the line, and then just put that face down.
Call your shots.
You call it ahead of time before you know what anybody else is doing. So it might be all six of you shoot the same guy, even after he's dead, right? Like you're saying. So it represents that you don't know because it's all happening. That's if there's a simultaneous initiative. Now that doesn't actually happen that often, but in a true simultaneous initiative, I will probably do that where I say, don't declare your action on a piece of paper quickly on a Post-it, and then I will go around to each of you just in order of just boom, 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 clockwise, and then you'll declare it because that all happens simultaneously. And because you're doing it simultaneous to what they're doing, I have to declare on my paper I'll be doing the same thing before I even know what you guys do, what they're going to do. Now the challenge with that is it might not apply. So you're all looking to fire, and the situation changes, and the guy drops. Well, your arrow went over him as he dropped, whatever. So it makes the combat a little different than you're used to, but it's good at representing the confusion of combat when there's a group going on. It's one thing when it's one-on-one, you can kind of track things pretty well. But if you're not able to communicate with each other with headsets and you don't have military training of who does what and what, it's chaotic. It's totally chaotic. You guys represented that fairly well. There was a lot of chaos going there. But I just want to let you know that's something, if that happens, that we will implement.
Okay.
Regarding color spray and the confusion about color spray, did you guys understand that in the end? Because it sounded like you wanted to drop some of the sentences, and every sentence in there was applicable. You were saying it contradicted what the first sentence said, and if you wanted me to help you parse it, because you're going to use it again.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure you understand.
Yeah.
Do you understand it, or do you want me to help you parse that? Because that's a very powerful spell.
I think I might have last week, but
Okay, let's refresh.
I have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, no sleep for you. So let's quickly refresh that. So I've got a copy of it here. Upon casting the spell, the illusionist causes a vivid fan-shaped spray of clashing colors. So like neon orange and neon green and just really high contrast to spring forth from his or her hand. From 1 to 6 creatures within the area of effect can be affected. The spellcaster is able to affect 1 level or hit die of creatures for each of their levels of experience, the caster's level of experience.
So
you're 3rd level, right?
I'm 2nd level.
2nd level. So you could affect up to 2 first-level creatures or 1 second-level creature up to your level, right? Mm-hmm. But there's extra caveats to that. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Affected creatures are struck unconscious for 2 to 8 rounds if their level is less than or equal to that of you. So if they're 2nd level or 1st level or 0 level, unconscious.
Quick question on that. If he say he is, level 3 or level 4 higher up, with multiple characters, but he hits them, and so he's hitting them with less than his he's hitting with a number of hit die designations that is below their level. So, let's say he has like 3 level 2 characters, and he tries to affect all of them, and you do level 2, only 1 hit die left because he's level 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that last one would not be affected by that statement right there because it's less than... Okay.
Correct. Yeah, you just subtract that way. And it's going to be pretty much based on the area of effect and such. And it's going to be the closest to you going outward from you. Basically, this is kind of like a flashbang, is what the effect is, without the puking. Okay. So unconscious for 2 to 8 rounds if their level is less than or equal to that of the caster. They are blinded for 1 to 4 rounds if their level or number of hit dice is 1 or 2 greater than the caster. So if they're 1 to 2 levels above you, 1 to 4 rounds that they're blinded. And they are stunned. They are stunned, which is the equivalent of Power Word Stun 7th level magic user spell. That's why this is a wonderful spell for illusionists. They can be pretty powerful. People poo-poo illusionists. I love illusionists. I think they're great. For 2 to 8 segments, if their level or number of hit dice is 3 or more greater than the spellcaster. So you can even stun for 2 to 8 segments like a 10th level bad guy. Right? I mean, how awesome is that you could do that at such a low level? Now, that being said, all creatures above the level of spellcaster and all creatures of 6th level or 6 hit dice do get a saving throw versus color spray spell. But everybody else does not. It's automatic. It's just limited on how many it affects.
Yeah, I believe they. I was lucky and they both failed though. So
Yeah.
So, what does stun for X segments mean in combat? Because I know why we bring up segments.
Basically inaction for that. So 6 seconds. But we're going to get to time in a minute.
Yeah, because I understand like segments play important. Like you have X segments and the.
So time. That's the next thing here on here.
And it gets,
a turn is 10 minutes. Now this is normal time. A turn is 10 minutes. A round is 1 minute. A segment is 6 seconds. That's the way it's broken down in AD&D First Edition. And so and this is again a Gygaxian thing, and all future systems, including Second Edition and Rolemaster and others, they didn't do the 1 minute round. Most other systems do like 30-second or 10-second rounds, right? A segment is usually like 1/10 of a round or something like that in other systems. But in First Edition, what Gygax and Arneson wanted to represent is a whole, because again, they were trying to abstract it a little bit. They wanted to represent a lot of the back and forth and all the other things and the maneuvering for position and getting things ready and all of that. And that out of that whole minute of activity, one of your efforts that you declare happens in that whole minute of activity. It's meant to represent many actions. That's why he didn't, at least initially. Now again, Boot Hill has a completely different system. After Gygax goes on at length how he doesn't like criticals, doesn't believe in criticals, doesn't think they're necessary, doesn't like detailed hits on hit location, stuff like that. He railed at length about that in the early 70s, and that it was an abstract representation of fatigue and all of that, and it wasn't meant to represent wounds so much. Boot Hill goes into great detail, which he did as well. It's a very detailed combat system with hit locations and criticals and all of that. So at some point he clearly changed his mind, at least for other systems. We will, when you guys, but when we get to, when your first PC gets to about 6th level, I'm going to start introducing my modified critical system that makes combat even more deadly. But I want you guys to at least be able to make it to mid-level before that starts happening. And again, it works on both ways.
The sentence that I had a problem with is the spellcatcher is able to affect 1 level or hit die of creatures for each of his or her experience levels.
Yeah.
So a 2nd level character should only be able to affect 2 hit dice of creatures.
Correct.
So if you are a 3rd level fighter...
But it's saying at this level of effect. So from 1 to 6 creatures within the area of effect can be affected with the hit dice there, be struck unconscious for 2 to 8 rounds if their level is below. That's the main thing they're talking about for that.
So that line only
applies
affects
if they're below.
To the creature struck unconscious.
Yes. The others are separate effects.
So then, and
it goes. The effects become less and less as they're higher levels.
So if I have an army of one-hit die goblins, then I can only do.
It's still only 1 to 6 creatures within the area of effect can be affected. Period. So that's that statement first. You only affect 1 to 6. So that's a D6 roll. 1 to 6 creatures affected. Then you determine what the maximum is for their hit dice.
If you set up and be like, aha, ambush and do that, you still roll and be like, you ambush it, but you only got 1? Even though you have this wedge that they would fall into.
Well, what that's representing is some of them were looking the other way or whatever, right? Because remember, they're trying to represent all the randomization of all the different variations of people. So it could be that you only affect 1.
Oh, okay.
Right, if they're low enough level. Or very little if they save and they're higher level and such. It's going to depend. But if they're all lower level, let's say you're 6th level, and I roll a d6, and I only get a 3. So that's 3 of them that are going to be affected. And then it's how many are affected based on their level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that clear? Okay. Yeah, you got to
As long as I know that
look for
only
the periods.
the first effect.
Yeah, you look at periods versus commas, and you have to kind of break it down and go, okay, this effect, then this effect, then this effect. So remember, Geyer Gygax was an underwriter for insurance companies before he got.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's used to all. That's why there's these. These are basically underwriter tables here for the combat tables and such. And so there's a tendency to get pretty just kind of run-on sentences and things like that, because if you look at underwriting, oh my goodness. So anyway. Let's see, we were talking about time, we were talking about, distances, because I heard some confusion about that. So, because this is the legacy of wargaming, right? Remember, it came from chainmail, which is where they added the fantasy aspect to wargaming. So everything they did was in 1 inch, because they're constantly referencing miniatures on a battlefield is where it comes from. So, 1 inch normally equals 10 feet indoors. Yeah, okay. For indoors. So talking indoors here, because that's the dungeon crawl. 1 inch equals 10 feet. And what that takes into account, for example, with the longbow, is potentially lower ceilings, not enough light like sunlight, other potential obstacles and lighting issues. Now, if you're in a big, giant, open cavern that's thousands of feet tall and whatever, the GM might rule, like if you're in the Great Underdark in a big, open cavern, the GM might rule that that's actually more of an outdoor situation if there's enough light, right? But there's got to be enough. There's got to be like an underground sun or something to light up that cavern for that area.
So, why is it that if you still have, taking into account things like line of sight, you still have that distinction for spells? Like some of the spells.
Nope, that's a mistake we've been making.
Okay.
So there's a couple of things here that I wanted to clarify. Some mistakes I've made as I've refreshed on these rules. So that's the indoor. It's 10 feet per inch, right? The double quote. Mm-hmm. So with an example for longbow indoors, 10-foot low ceilings. So longbow's max range is 21, right? Mm-hmm. So that's 210 feet if it's indoors. Area of effect is always 1 inch equals 10 feet.
Okay.
So doesn't matter if it's indoors or outdoors. Area of effect, not range. Area of effect is always 1 inch equals 10 feet.
Okay.
It was one little sentence on Player's Handbook, page 39, that I just caught this time. All this time, I think I've been doing that wrong forever. I don't think I ever caught that.
And how many feet is a foot?
How many feet is a foot?
Yeah.
Wait.
Well, in scale.
How many feet is a foot?
Yes. In scale.
You mean 1 inch to 5 feet?
1 foot.
Well, how many real feet are in a fictional foot when it has the foot?
You mean the 1 inch?
Yeah.
The double quote. So indoors.
Well, there's the 1 inch, and I've also seen the 1 foot.
Like the little double quotation marks and single quotation
Well, single
marks?
quote. So if it's a single quote, it's a foot is a foot.
Okay.
It's when you see. So what's happening is if it's a miniature situation, 1 inch on the battle mat represents 10 feet.
Oh yeah.
That's what they're saying. Versus when you're outdoors, 1 inch equals 10 yards, aka 30 feet. Mm-hmm. And what that represents is big open space, maybe better lighting, that no trees or obstruction. So there you can do the full arc of a longbow, and get 210 yards instead of 210 feet.
And when we get to the range modifiers, so like long range is 8 or whatever, they step down. The minuses step down the same. It's not like how do I put it?
Short, medium, and long as far as the penalties to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're generally the same. There's sometimes different modifiers, but yeah, usually it's -2, -4, whatever. Yeah, it's the same.
All right then.
Yeah, SML. Again, they tried to standardize that.
So you would get a minus at medium range inside, but at that same exact distance on the outside, it would fall under pretty much.
So, but remember,
short
it's going to be
range.
feet versus
Yeah,
tens of yards.
Yeah.
But so if it's long range 210 feet indoors, you're going to apply your long range penalty at 210 feet.
Understood.
If you're long range 210 yards outdoors, then you apply the long range of 210.
I'm just saying, if the same
yards.
target's at 210 feet outdoors, the penalty is different at that
Yes,
point.
then that's closer to medium range or whatever. Right?
So, with area of effect with magic, you said that doesn't change?
Area effect is always 1 inch equals 10 feet. So
Okay,
if it
so
says one double
that's what I was-
quotes, it's always 10 feet. It's never yards. That was a little one sentence thing I caught. That makes a big difference. It changes.
And it's in all caps on page 39.
Yes, it is in all caps. It is in all caps, and still all this time I missed it. And we apparently have been missing it the whole time we've been running stuff. So I was glad I stumbled across that one. Oh, yeah.
This game is like the English language of role-playing games.
They did
in that
kludge. So
There's
this
always
is where
an
Osric
exception
is
to every
handy, because
rule.
Osric tries to take all of that and try to make it more organized. Because if you look at how D&D evolved, it was first 3 little booklets, and it didn't have that many options. It was really simple. You used a D6 and a D20, and that was it. Then they added the other booklets to add more classes, and they added different ranges of hit points. Everybody only had a D6 for hit points in the first 3 booklets.
All weapons did
Whether you were a
D6
fighting
damage.
man or spellcaster, whatever, it was a D6. Everybody's hit die was a D6. They then added these options. So you see some of that legacy in AD&D where they were trying to reorganize it to be a little better, and they brought in all their other ideas. It's still not as organized as it needs to be. That's the biggest problem.
And then
with
some of the
submission.
things came in like,
It's
oh,
not
we had an
organized.
article in a magazine
Right.
explaining something.
Well, you saw the same thing with BECME, Basic Expert Companion Mortals, or Masters Immortals, where as the booklets came out, they kept expanding the rules, which I really, BECME's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you got to flip through 5 different books to find all your different rules, right? They're scattered between, and it's kind of a mess. So then they made the rules cyclopedia, try to make it continuous, but then they also dropped stuff too. So it's an organizational issue big time. That's definitely a problem. That's why I'm so sad that when my DMG got stolen, because I had all my notes of where it was, and it made it so easy for me to find everything. And that was years of improvements just lost. Anyway, so those are important about range. Movement, an important thing, if anybody's mapping, and you guys need to declare if you're mapping or not, otherwise you're going to get lost, if you're especially in a dungeon or something. Mapping makes you move 10 times slower than your normal move. If you're trying to move cautiously or quietly, it is assumed in a dungeon and stuff that you are trying to move cautiously, quietly, and that somebody is mapping. So the default is that the party as a group, right, we're talking as a group, with somebody mapping and with somebody looking for traps and somebody trying to move silently, only moves 10 feet over a 10-minute period. So like you guys are really searching very carefully. Now that's not quite the same as looking for traps. You still have to declare you're looking for traps and such. But that is why elves automatically, because you're moving carefully and slowly. These are little details that get overlooked. Now you don't have to move that slowly. But if you're mapping, and if you say you're moving carefully, that's how slowly the default rules say. You can move faster.
What if you're doing both?
What do you mean?
Searching for traps and...
Mapping and moving slowly and carefully.
That's all included in that.
Okay,
That
so
is assuming moving slowly and carefully and mapping, all of that makes you move 10 feet over 10 minutes.
All right, then. So in our movement, our base rate, so...
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay,
We'll get to explaining all of that.
I was just wondering if
I got a simple little chart.
If you could be, if was
At that point, you can kind of say we're going about this speed, and the GM can kind of modify and such how much.
Okay.
So, oops. Mute that. Okay. So, if it's a known route or you're following a map, it's 10 feet over 2 rounds instead of 10 minutes. So if you already know the route or you're following a map, you're still moving fairly cautiously, being kind of aware of the environment, trying to move silently.
How many rounds per turn? Because a turn's 10 minutes, and there's 10...
There's 10 rounds.
Okay.
10 rounds in a turn.
So you're basically moving at 5 feet a minute.
Or 50 feet a minute.
50 feet a minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're fleeing, it's 10 feet over 1 round. And again, this is as a group, that you're still trying to stay together as a group, and you're fleeing. It's 10 feet over 1 round. Now, that is not individual differences in speed. That is trying to stay together as a cohesive party. As John knows from being in convoys and such, individual vehicle speed is irrelevant to moving as a unit.
Right.
You have to move a lot
Supporting
slower
effect.
to keep a unit moving together.
Well, if anybody's had to say, okay, I'll drive in my car and you follow me there.
Yeah.
Watch out for the. Try not to get stopped by a stoplight that I miss.
Exactly,
And,
exactly. There's a lot of variables. So this is party movement, not individual movement. And the main point is to approximate how long it takes you to search through a dungeon crawl and stuff. The DM can say, yeah, you've covered 60 feet in an hour.
All right, then.
But if you're being really, really, really careful, that's not that ridiculous. If you're being really careful and you're mapping and really looking for all the details.
Looking for hidden
Again,
passageways.
Yeah, you can be faster, but this is important to keep in mind. So, a distance traveled in one, so this is your movement rate. So if you have a 6 double quotes movement rate.
Yep.
In 1 round, which is 1 minute, you can easily move 60 feet. That's just walking speed, 60 feet. Or in 1 segment, which is 6 seconds, you move 6 feet. That is a little slow. Yeah, you could definitely move more than that. But that is a slow move, too. A 6 is considered, halfling speed.
Right.
So, and it just pretty much goes across the board. A 9 is 90 feet in a round, 9 feet in a segment. A 12, which is what most people are, is 120 feet in a round and 12 feet in a segment. If moving but 12 feet in 6 seconds seems slow, it says consider the conditions, whether prolonged physical exertion or the threat of hostile counter to the movement. So just the being on edge, and again, you're assuming a dangerous dungeon situation here, kind of creeping along, hoping everything's safe. You're not necessarily going to move in. You don't know what the terrain is. If you ever walked underground spelunking or in a mine and such, you got to be careful of a lot of obstacles. You're going to go a little more slowly unless you've been over it many times. So that, again, it's not perfect, but I'm trying to explain the context of these rules so that we work within them. Also, what's interesting is if you're outdoors, each 1 double quotes equals number of miles of travel in 1/2 day's trekking. There are terrain impacts, but assuming no terrain impacts. So if you have a 12, you can move 12 miles in a half day of travel. Okay. Cities are generally considered a 6, 60 feet in 1 minute. That assumes you're dealing with traffic and all the people milling about and having to dodge and make way for each other. And, yeah, exactly, and sewage being dumped through the windows or what have you. So typically 6 double quotes, 60 feet in 1 minute. If you have a 6 movement, etc. It came up about cover and concealment and an armor class. Pretty straightforward. 25% gives you a +2 bonus to your armor class. Plus 25% cover gives you +2. 50% cover gives you +4. 75% gives you +7, and 90% gives you +10 to your armor class. Concealment is less. Concealment is roughly half. 25% concealment's +1 to your armor class, 50% is +2, 75% is +3, and 90% concealment's +4.
Do they
So
stack?
what's that?
Do they stack? You have cover and concealment.
No, this is
cover is always concealment.
right. No,
So it probably
concealment
doesn't
is
stack.
less than cover. Cover. If you have cover, then cover overrules.
Got it.
You're
It's the
automatically
difference
concealed behind cover.
Being behind a bush as opposed to being behind
Yes,
a wall.
a bush versus a wall, exactly, or a rock.
Cover will stop missiles,
Exactly.
and bushes may not. They just
Exactly.
make it harder for you to be targeted.
Exactly.
Real quick, just so I have it down.
Yeah.
If you're mapping and looking for traps, it was how many feet per turn?
10 feet per 10, well, per turn, it was 10 feet per 10 minutes.
And we said a turn was 10 minutes, so 10.
Yeah,
so
so
it goes
it's
10 feet
1
to,
foot per,
Minute.
Foot a minute.
yeah, foot a minute, yeah. All right, Player's Handbook, page 103, and DMG, page 62 for surprise. Surprise automatically gives initiative to the non-surprised party, unless you're both surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
But if one's surprised and one is not, the non-surprised party automatically gets initiative. The distance of 10 feet or less can usually be closed and an attack made in just one segment in a surprise situation like that. 1 to 2 on a d6 is a normal surprise. Other factors can change that. Different creatures can be a d8, can be a d10, and still just be a 1 to 2, etc., or just a 1. That's going to vary. If two parties walk around a corner without either knowing about the other, both parties roll a d6, so 2d6 total, and see which ones roll a 1 to 2 for which was surprised. Then you look at the difference between the two as well. So if nobody rolls a 1 to 2, nobody's surprised. You're both not surprised. Normal initiative happens. If one party rolls a 1 and the other party rolls a 3, so one's surprised, one's not, you've got a difference of 2 segments. That's going to give the surprising party, not the surprise party, a bonus of 2 extra segments to do the extra attacks and such.
I thought it was the 1 or 2 was a surprise segment, either 1 segment or 2 segments, and the difference comes in if you're both surprised. So if Group A rolls 2, Group B rolls 1, then there's only 1 segment of surprise for Group 2. And if it's a non-surprise, you can only have up to 2 segments of surprise on a typical surprise roll, unless you have modifiers by particular class.
Yeah, I think you're
Say surprise
reading
again.
more into it. I heard you do that with the last show, and I was like,
No, because there's some things that
Kinda
gets into the
loop it around.
charts. Because if you roll a 1, and then someone else rolls like a 6,
Right.
do you get 5 segments of surprise?
yes.
Because it has like what
They were just
examples
showing
are-
examples of 4 to 1, 5 to 2, etc.
Yeah.
But those are differences of 3. It's just simple. You just
Yeah, but that's from the
two.
charts, right?
Well, and if you calculate it, it's the same way either way.
No, but I'm saying I think if you read the charts versus you read the rules, you only are surprised on a 1 or a 2, and then 3 through 6 is not surprised, but that doesn't give you more not surprised, or actually more surprised.
It gives the party who's not surprised more segments advantaged over the surprised party. It's pretty straightforward.
It's like how much time did they have before did you have before the other party actually really noticed you and got prepared? You know, you can surprise someone and have them be ready to attack you in a second, or you can surprise someone and they're like, ah, you know.
Because
And of course, emphasis is that's a difference of segments, not rounds. You discovered that later. At first, you thought it was rounds, and I was like, no, it's segments. But it's a huge attack. Yeah, you get triple bow and double. Yeah,
you get your full attack per round
per
in
segment.
that segment. Yes.
Yes.
And
yes, squeezed in. So if you get 3 segments advantage,
I want to get the
they're
books
in
because
trouble.
I remember reading like you roll a 1, that's 1 segment. You can roll a 2, and that's 2 segments.
So I'm going to say, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Let's keep it. This is straightforward. This is how the DM understands it. It works. Don't muddy the waters.
Because at 5 segments, it's like, well,
Yeah, you don't need to muddy the waters. It's pretty. Yeah, no, that's the point. You have such overwhelming advantage. You crush them. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe their armor and magic is so good, everything you do doesn't do anything. Right? That could happen. But yeah, and that's the most you could really get, short of funky dice and other magic items.
well, you got
is
the
an advantage of
rangers,
5
and then
segments.
you have the
Yeah, that's true.
the other
There
stuff.
are- there's special modifiers.
And
that
what
you can
happens
do
when
more.
you're not rolling a d6 anymore? Because
Some will have D8s and stuff like that.
So
You compare the difference. So it could be 7 or 8 or more if it went in that favor. It definitely could. But we're talking just go with the straight one. Don't muddy the waters. Don't get analysis paralysis.
But
keep the game going.
that's 30 seconds of I'm surprised for 30 seconds.
It's complete shock and awe and overwhelm. And in Twilight 2000, which we played, think of it as coolness under fire. That they're so overwhelmed they lost their coolness under fire. Did you play Twilight 2000 with us at all? So Twilight 2000 has a rule for losing it under attack. When you first get attacked, you roll your coolness under fire and see if you like drop into fetal position, freeze, or you're ready to go. And your coolness under fire affects
Have you
that, and so
ever
it represents
seen
that.
American
Partly
Pie so
surprise is also there to like simulate like we're eating breakfast and we just woke up at camp.
Yep.
Suddenly we're being attacked from out of nowhere. So like you don't have your boots on.
Yeah.
Your weapons are in the tent.
Whatever it is. In this
just
case, a narrow canyon, completely completely inferior position.
Yeah. Granted, that right there has a whole level of, well, now you have to go and get things and equip items, and that's time sinks separate from being surprised.
But this guides the DM in saying, like, oh, yeah, you notice now that they're only, or they were completely unprepared, or they were so busy talking to each other and looking at each other. So it lets the GM modify the narrative to fit appropriately, that they're just completely flat-footed and unprepared.
Think like America's Funniest Home Videos. How many videos have you seen where someone gets surprised and suddenly they don't know how to hold something.
Yeah, like they convulse
they don't
stuff.
They don't know how to just stand there.
Yeah.
Didn't we just confirm that heroes are like more than the average Joe in terms of like their combat abilities? It's just like
But
that it can happen to the best of us.
Yeah, anybody's got the capability for it if
fully
they
trained
are unlucky.
Vets can really, that's where training is critical, but it
Cats
takes
could
time.
be surprised by bikinis.
By
It's
what?
cucumbers.
Yes.
What?
Yeah, you can put a cucumber on the ground and surprise a cat.
Yeah, they
Missed that meme.
it's quite common for cats to react strangely to cucumbers and zucchinis laying on the ground.
Okay.
They believe it's a snake thing.
Okay, well, anyway, regarding your comment about crossbows, this does not apply, like the shooting 3 times in a
says in
segment
the
is
book.
not, I understand, and this is where we're making a house rule.
Okay, fair enough.
Because that was a valid point about crossbows. It is not physically possible to reload a crossbow that quickly unless it's a Choco Nu. If it's a Choco Nu repeating crossbow, then it would be possible.
With the poison
But
tips and
short
everything.
of like a double crossbow or repeating crossbow, a normal crossbow, you would need to have 3 crossbows ready or something, like just grab them and shoot, grab them and shoot, grab them and shoot.
I think
To
we
be
have
able
a couple,
to-
but
to be
nobody's
able to
trained
do
to
it.
use them.
What's that?
I think we have a couple, but nobody's
That could
trained
be.
to use them.
But that would be the only way you could do that with a crossbow. So that's a little house rule just to let you know you're right. You can't reload a crossbow that freaking fast. So that's where we have an exception to the rule. It's a house rule because it's not specified in the core rules.
Unfortunately, Gatling hasn't been born yet.
Right.
And you just put 3 bolts in a row.
Well, that's what the Choco Nu kind of does because it's got a little feeder.
A hopper with arrows.
Yeah.
And like.
All right. Important to remind you, and I already mentioned a little earlier, remember that your dexterity reaction adjustment not only is really critical in this surprise situation, it subtracts or adds the number of segments of surprise. So this is, again, coolness under fire. Somebody who's got a good reaction adjustment might negate those segments of surprise.
Only when unencumbered.
Yeah, you got to be. You got to be nimble and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're ninjaing and get surprised, and they may have 3 points of surprise advantage, but you have a +3 reaction adjustment. They didn't get that advantage. They don't get the extra segments. They still get initiative automatically, but they don't get the bonus segments.
So what I'm hearing is I have 9 more bow shots.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
No. It says only the segments of the ones being surprised. It negates or adds. Yeah, you could get shot 9 more times. It doesn't add to your surprise attack. It's only the defense because it's a reaction adjustment, not attacking adjustment.
I always thought that
That's
should
a
be
different-
like
So there's a surprise adjustment. There's also a defense adjustment. And those are 2 different things.
Defense adjustment goes towards your armor class?
Yeah, defense adjustment's your armor class. Yeah, you knew that.
Next question.
Spellcasting. If struck in any way while spell casting, it disrupts the spell. Also, you cannot be running, dodging, galloping, riding quickly, or walking normally, even normal walk while spell casting. If you do it, it disrupts your spell.
I don't think that.
Well,
would
like your
happen.
concentration spells and stuff, keep that in mind. That we were kind of loosey-goosey about that the first day.
Okay, that's
Breaking out of
concentration
Balcon.
spells, not regular spells.
Is there an exception to that for concentration?
I'm
This
not
is saying all spells. It says all spell casting is disrupted. You can move very slowly, but you can't be walking normally.
Well, it's the.
Y'all are writing
that's saying
things
the
often.
casting of it. So the casting isn't necessarily the concentrating to keep it open.
As far as I understand it, that includes it breaks your concentration.
Well-
If you get struck in any way, or you're trying to walk at normal speed or anything, it will break your concentration. You won't be able to
Okay.
maintain the spell.
See, I would think that
GM
would be
and
a
a
little bit
So,
like. I
unless-
understand you couldn't do it while you're spell casting, but
Well, I'm saying clearly, unless we find a rule that says otherwise, John's looking right now, let's just say a rule that says something special for concentration spells that allows you to do other stuff. I'm saying this applies to concentration as well.
okay.
That it will disrupt your spell if anything happens to you. I mean, that just makes
it's-
sense.
So
you got to stay
so in
focused
this
without
case,
interruption.
you're thinking it's more like a meditation than concentration.
No, you are concentrating on keeping that spell going, and you've
Oh, yeah,
got to
okay,
keep all your
that's
focus.
going. So if it's,
It's like if you're focusing on your phone while you're walking downtown, you
Yeah,
might
and
get
you
hit
walk
by
into a
bus.
so
pole.
but that's a different term. That's
Or
spell that
casting.
requires to be
If you're
maintained.
it says spell casting. So if you're casting a spell, and because of initiative, so you declare your action, but it's not your turn yet. You're going to be casting the spell, and it's not your turn yet, and you get hit, or you say, "I'm doing it while running. I'm going to cast the spell." You can't do it while running. You can't do it while walking normally. It says that very clearly for spell casting.
There's
That's
a
not even
picture,
concentration.
I believe, in the Dungeon Master Guide. I believe it's in the Dungeon Master Guide. I couldn't find it right off, man. Miracle the Chaotic Evil, riding through town at a full
Yes, where
gallop.
he's zapping. Yes, he's zapping and doing this. Yes,
At a full
but
gallop.
that's artistic license.
There's a lot of things in this. There's a picture of a very beautiful bottle that's
And I
labeled
think,
stuff.
yeah, and I think there's a spell that does, like there is a spell that can help you with this, but that's different. We're talking about normal circumstances here.
So if I'm going to cast Magic Missile and
You
somebody
need to
has a
stop.
higher initiative and hits me first,
You disrupt
Then I-
your spell.
do
And
I
that's
lose the
common.
slot?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's-
use it. It
that's
gets
common.
expended. That's common in most systems. If you get disrupted, it's gone. So just want to make that very clear as things, because you guys had your first real combat in a while, and you're about to go into a very deadly area.
so
And I
you
want
have to
guys
declare
understand
your
these things.
actions before you know initiative, because I know
Yes.
that if I'm going to spell cast, I'm going to have
Yes.
to wait. I'm going to wait until whether or not
Exactly.
I got hit before
And
I
that's
cast.
why I talked about writing it down first, saying I'm going to do this to this person.
Which is
before
incredibly
you know.
brutal to a person who has one spell per week.
Well,
I mean,
I've waited for you guys to get higher up in level. They're not first level. See, this is all
they
about
still
that
only
layering.
get 1 or 2 spells per day.
But we're layering in. Well, they've got cantrips too. We've been layering in complexity. We don't hit them with everything at once. We slowly add it as they're ready.
Yeah,
to
once I hit
handle
2, I started storing 1 full spell and 4 cantrips instead of just
Yeah.
4 cantrips.
it. Sure. Yeah,
So-
that's a common tactic until you can get more,
Because
stuff.
it just wasn't worth it to have 1 spell.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
better to have 4
And then you're
cantrips.
done, right? Then you're all done. Okay. One of the key things about initiative is it's called possession of initiative. Now, I go back and forth on this, literally back and forth. So the way you're supposed to do it is every new round, you're supposed to roll initiative.
Yeah,
Every
I
round.
played it that way, and I played
And
for the
I'm
round,
kind of
the whole-
what?
Surprising how it happens. It's talking about weird combinations of roles.
Okay,
It
and I
says-
said don't worry about it. I said let it go.
It's
I'm
completely
saying let it
different.
go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
It's completely different than the charts.
I said let it go. That's
right.
why we're declaring this to reduce the confusion. This is what every DM has to
Eventually,
do.
you have to have some house rules.
Every DM has to do this, and that's what I'm trying to illustrate here. Is I'm
Okay.
going through it going, okay, yeah, I can see where that's confusing some people. Let's not get down the road of analysis paralysis. Let's take the spirit of what was intended, parse it down to making it still have enough complexity that there's enough variety, but don't get bogged down. One of the what's rule number 0 is the DM gets to decide what rules apply and don't apply. And so every game system, every single one, pretty much says that you're going to decide which rules apply. Every rule is optional in here. So do not get stuck with that.
All right.
We will try to be as consistent as possible, and that's what we're doing here, is we're saying, okay, I can see why that was confusing. Let's parse it down a little bit, make it a little bit simpler so it's not quite so overwhelming and complicated.
As long as
will
everyone's
say
clear
that-
on the house rules.
Exactly. And
Yes.
then I write them down,
The-
they get posted to the website, and we make it consistent.
The difference on what's saying there in the charts is that to get the
I
higher segments
said, let it go.
needs like
I know, let
other
it go.
things.
Let
Yeah.
it go. Let it go.
All right.
I know there are inconsistencies. The book is riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions. The editing was not the best, unfortunately. So that's where the DM has to make a value judgment of what is the best for moving the game forward, right? And so that's the important thing: is go. You know what? Okay, I'm declaring this. Let's move forward and not get stuck there.
All right.
So it's very important to
Rule
understand.
number one is there are no rules.
No, there are the rules that the DM dictates can be there. So, a routine attack routine attack is used frequently throughout the initiative comment. Routine attack is what you do most commonly. So, if you don't normally pick up a chair and hit somebody over the head, that's not a routine attack. If you regularly are whipping out your longsword and that's your primary normal attack, that's a routine attack. Initiative assumes routine attack, something that you do frequently, not something you do infrequently. So just keep that in mind, that if you're doing something atypical, the DM may decide that might take you a little longer than normal.
I want to make a character who's a master of just grabbing random
Improvised,
furniture.
right,
and-
yeah.
Room brawl, drunken mastery.
Regarding multiple attacks in initiative, so now we're not talking about surprise anymore. We're
Okay.
talking just about if you have 2 attacks per round. We'll keep it simple with that without getting to 3/2 and 3/5 and all that, but just 2 attacks per round. The side that has possession of initiative, and somebody who has multiple attacks per round gets to attack first and last if they have 2 attacks per round. So in that same round, so they attack, then other people attack, other people attack, other people attack for that side that's attacking, right? The side that won initiative. So if you guys won initiative, and one of you has 2 attacks per round, and some of the others only have 1 attack per round, so that person goes first, then the rest of your party, and then also goes last before it then hands off to the losing side for initiative.
And remind me, are we playing it where party on sides they can mix the initiative, like some guys on one team go, some guys on the other side go the night, or are we keeping it one and then one side's attacking?
For the
other
most
side's
part,
attacking?
it's going to depend on the situation. And
Okay.
again, often I don't even roll initiative because the situation just decides that anyway. I don't arbitrarily roll initiative if it's not
Okay.
needed. If it is clear who has initiative, you've noticed that. A lot of times we don't need to roll. It's just, as the narrative unfolds, it makes sense who did what first. But when it isn't clear who's going first, then we will roll. Sometimes I will roll just one side versus the other. That's the simple, basic one. Other times I will have each of you roll. It's just going to depend. You might be broken into 3 different units or something. So that's going to vary. And generally I just use the D6 to help decide when everything, all other things being equal, who gets to go in what order there. And if it's a tie, then it's a tie. And then that's when we might bring in weapon speed factor. So, because most of the time we won't. But if you have a tie where it really makes a difference, where you're both attacking simultaneously, but one of you is using a rapier or dagger, which is a very short, very quick, very low weapon speed factor, versus one of you is using a polearm or a 2-handed sword, even though you tied an initiative, the guy with the rapier or the dagger goes first.
What if they're both using equal weapons?
Right.
Does it come down to dex or something at that point?
No, you go ahead and roll both, and then you have simultaneous results. You both stab each other simultaneously. So it doesn't. So the thing is, the guy coming at me with the 2-handed sword and you with the dagger, you get to stab me first. You might stop my attack, right? You may take me out before I do. But if we're both taking each other and all other things being equal, and we tie, we hit each other and we both figure out the results simultaneously. There was a Joe and Katie. Do you guys remember? Was it Fame? They made a series based on the movie Fame.
Yes.
And they used one of the episodes. This was in the early days of breakdancing. They had 2 gangs who did a dance against each other, but at the end it turned to a fight, and they ended the scene with them simultaneously punching each other, both just very dramatically.
Right, I remember
Do you remember that?
Yeah, simultaneous knockout.
Yeah. So that's where that would happen. It takes an awful lot of variables lining up for that to happen, but it could happen. And then we would roll both and just deal with the consequences simultaneously. So you wouldn't be able to stop them from hitting you and or them hitting you. So
Wasn't there something about speed factor and number of attacks for like pretty much like being not just like standard melee, but you're like basically engaged.
Like a big giant pole arm, it's almost impossible to attack twice per round. Even though you may have 2 attacks per round, if it has a speed factor of 12 and you can only have 10 for 1 round, you can't do 2 attacks per round with a big pole arm. It has other advantages to using a pole arm, but you lose your 2 attacks per round.
Nobody in melee can reach you.
Well, no, they can just go around because it's really hard to. So during the charge or setting for a charge, you have the advantage, and then you immediately lose that advantage. It has a very couple segments specific to pole arms. So again, I try not to get bogged down too much in the mechanics, but they do make sense once you weed through and you take and avoid the logic loops and that can happen sometimes. So that's simultaneous initiative. Okay, so there's a whole outline of all the steps. But basically the outline is determine surprise if applicable, determine the distance between the parties, then everybody declares their actions. This is before we determine initiative. Everybody declares what they want to do. Once we're past surprise and we know how far away, you know where everybody is, then everybody declares their actions. Now normally, I just go around to each of you and do it that way, right? That's often the case. If it tactically or story-wise makes sense, I might say, write down what you want to do to whom. Hurry and write it down, just on a Post-it, and then put it face down or face up. I don't care, it doesn't matter. I do care actually. Put it face down. Don't say it out loud. Put it face down. Then I will go around to each of you after everybody has written it down, and then we'll see what happens. It might be all of you attack the front guy, or all of you attack the middle guy, or who knows what. Just a number of you held back from fighting for quite a long time, but that'll make up for a little bit more of the not knowing and reduce some of the meta. So then determine initiative, then determine the results of the actions by the side that won initiative. So at that point you can avoid engagement, parlay, wait, missile fire, magic items, spells, and turning, close range or charge. So this is all resolving that initiative. Set to receive charge, strike your melee blows, grapple, determine the results of actions by the side that lost initiative, and then you go on to your next round. So that's that whole process there. It actually happens much more quickly. It actually, in a way, almost takes longer to spell that out. Because once you get the hang of it, it just goes very quickly. Let's see.
Never let the spellcaster get hit.
Yeah, to keep them from being hit.
Gotta guard the glass cannon.
So that's the some key other things. The 1 minute melee assumes a lot of various actions: rushing, retreating, feints, parries, checks, etc. Just a lot of running around and everything. So, for example, if you think of Princess Bride, when Inigo Montoya versus the Dread Pirate Roberts did their little duel there, they rarely, they didn't really score any hits. They just did a lot of, and then they disarmed them, and but it took a long time. They were just fencing back and forth without anything happening, and then scored something. And then fencing back and forth, and then scored something. That's your hit that you get to roll, is that one time that he got through, and the rest is just assumed in that time.
Not the Miyazaki of 30 seconds of staring.
Yeah.
Someone's dead.
Yeah, that's a whole other, Jiu-Jitsu and everything, Melee parry, this is something that I forget to mention to people all the time. In Rollmaster we use it all the time. You can parry. This is important. This is critical, especially those of you who don't have low armor classes. You can
my former DM on first edition was very adamant that you could not do anything to avoid a hit. It was all put into your defense.
That was them.
Oh no, I'm just saying. That frustrated me.
Yeah,
so
melee parry. You can apply your hit bonus if you have one to your armor class, but you can't attack that round. If you apply parry, you use up your whole attack that round. So if you have a +1 to hit because of either dex or strength, or magic item, whatever, you can apply that and lower your armor class by 1 point.
That's good.
or
That's,
2 or 3.
That gives options.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the kind of thing you can decide after you get struck?
No. You
You
have
have to declare before you know if you're going to get hit.
Correct.
That you want.
Yes.
And is this something like, I know Joe's a fighter, and so in his matricy and doing things, he has a much higher to hit. But that's never like a number written down. It's just kind of baked into his level.
Well,
Does
yeah,
that go into parry?
yeah. I mean, each class has a different. So
Yeah.
each is a different chart. So you've got clerics and druids, magic users, and illusionists are the worst. For
Okay.
these are the combat to hit charts.
Okay.
Fighters, paladins, rangers, bards, and 0-level halflings and humans, and then thieves and assassins.
Okay, so...
And so you cross-reference armor class to the roll.
Okay.
It tells you what you need to roll to hit that armor class. Now, and I then add or subtract your bonuses.
Okay, and
So if you have a parry, they have to roll that much higher a number to hit you because you've lowered your armor class.
Okay, but the question was, so let's say I don't have anything. In fact, I'd actually have a negative adjustment because my low strength to adding to parry, so that doesn't help me at all. But if I'm like a high level thief, and so I can hit things more regularly, does that higher level my ability to hit better add into parrying? Like in other games?
No, it has nothing to do with this chart.
Okay, just making sure, because I know
The
later
parry
games.
option is only based on any bonuses you have to hit.
Okay.
So if you have a dex bonus to hit, if it's applicable, it may not be, usually isn't.
Yeah.
Generally it's a strength bonus to hit. Or a magic bonus, because you have a magic item and they move a little more quickly and what have you. So you have a +2 sword or something. You can opt to apply. You give up your attack. You've switched into defensive mode. You give up your attack that round, but you apply it to your defense.
I'm very excited.
Good.
I have a question.
Shoot.
I have a 18 dex.
Yes.
Which, me. That's +3 for missile attack.
Yeah, that's missile.
If I am attacking like from a distance with a bow, I can instead choose to parry
No.
missile attacks at me with my bow.
No, that is melee only.
But he could apply
This is
it-
melee parry only.
He could apply that if he's using a finesse type weapon. That would be off.
Finesse type weapons aren't really defined in first edition.
Okay. So if he had a rapier or other.
That's where speed factor kicks in
Ah.
for your initiative.
Okay.
If you're going against a rapier versus a two-handed sword, and you tie on your initiative, the rapier gets to strike before the two-handed sword. That's where you get the Rob Roy situation and stuff, if you know what I'm talking about. But so yeah, it does that help? Does that and of course surprise and everything else factors into that. So no, it generally only applies. I realize I kind of said that earlier and I misspoke, but it generally applies to your strength bonus, your magic bonus, things like that.
Okay. Then. So until I get
But
some
it still helps you. I mean, it still helps. Having that dex definitely helps you.
I don't have
Speaking
that.
of dex,
Yes,
please.
please.
But the spell casting during melee.
Yes.
Spellcasters must note the spell they intend to cast at the beginning of each round prior to any knowledge of which side has initiative.
Yep. That's generally all declaration of actions.
Attacks directed at spellcasters will come on that segment of the round shown on the opponent's or their own side's initiatives die, whichever is applicable.
Yeah.
Intelligence monsters will attack the spellcaster. Spellcasters cannot use his or her. But this one, spellcasters cannot use his or her dexterity bonus to avoid being hit during spellcasting.
Right, you can't dodge. You cannot
you're
dodge. You
concentrating
lose your
on-
dex bonus when you're if you're casting a spell. Yeah, and
So
that
that
includes
you do-
concentrating.
Does that mean you lose your dex minus 2?
Well, unfortunately, no. But again, if you try to dodge. All right. Falling back is moving away using parry. That is a valid move in first edition.
Okay.
That because they don't have attack of opportunity as a thing that came in third edition. It basically though reduces. So if you just flee, if you just turn and run away, it exposes you to a rear attack, which is the equivalent of an attack of opportunity. So the melee attack by opponent only works though if you're fleeing, if you turn to run, if their speed is equal to or better than your speed. So if you're fighting somebody who has a 6 move and you have a 12 move, and you turn to flee, actually that'll work. You can get away with melee. We're talking melee here,
Right.
so they can just shoot you. But if you're
Which these
fighting
guys
against
did.
somebody who's slow and you turn and run, you can do that. But if you're fighting somebody who's either equal to or faster than you and you want to disengage from them, it's called falling back. You can basically move back about 10 feet, parrying, So you have to give up your attack, and you say, I want to fall back. And you use a parry, and you try to move away. Now, they may just continue to engage you. That's up to them.
Just because if I make that declaration, I then have a -1 to my hit adjustment, or if I have a minus to my strength bonus, does it not factor into the parrying?
-1 for...
I have -1
because your strength is so low.
So if I make...
so that
So I'm actually
you
worse
actually
off.
make it easier for them to hit you. Yes.
Okay, just so,
So
we're
it
clear.
does. Yeah, that would actually make, because you're so bumbling or weak that it helps them to hit you.
Okay.
Although in that case, I would probably do something like they disarm you or something. They like fling
Stumble
your weapon aside or
forward
something.
onto their sword.
Yeah.
Like, what? I wasn't even going to do anything
Well,
yet.
in his case, it's strength, but he's like, "Ugh," he's so slow with the sword because it's so heavy.
So it's
Yeah,
better for me not to just use the parry action whatsoever.
Yeah, in your case, that would work against you.
Okay.
So keep
just so
that
we're
in-
clear.
But for those who have it, and when you get magic items, then it might equal out. So we're pretty much. Missile and dex attack adjustment, bonus to initiative and to hit bonus. Just want to remind you of that your dex attack adjustment is also a bonus to your initiative. For your individual initiative, as far as who's doing what when. So just keep that in mind, those of you with high dex bonus. When you're using a missile weapon, it gives you, advantage to shoot first. Questions on that? Does that help clarify? I mean, I know some of it was kind of clear last week after a while, but
Some of it's going to have to just
practice, yes, and you'll get plenty of
Learn as
opportunities
you
for
go.
that. So, now that we've covered all the rules stuff,
It's time for break.
practically, let's see, what time is it? Oh, we got 20 minutes. So,
We promise there's going to be a show, a story.
yes, now we'll get back into it, but we needed to get all that rectified so you guys
Do you
can
want to give
move
them your
forward
magic
safely.
items before we do anything else?
So, yes, well, that depends. So, tell everybody where we were at. So, you ambushed them, you slaughtered them. Summarize that battle, how it went, just very briefly. Each of you, I want to hear your character's perspective
Okay,
of what
then.
happened.
Oh, my character's perspective.
Yes, so your character would be recounting this over a fire later.
Okay.
All right then. So
But
there I was.
But I want you to keep it short. I know that's
Okay.
hard for your character. Pretend your character decided to actually keep it short.
This is someone
Oh.
summarizing
So about a
what your
minute or
character
so.
said.
Oh, okay then. So what actually happened was that I valiantly stood guard over the trap system until the bad guys started coming in, and Farhad, being the daring leader he is, signaled the attack with a bow, and then they all started running, so I set off the traps to keep them from getting in the little huska that we're in, and then, one caught on fire, one got hit by a rock, and then there's a whole bunch of arrows, just arrows everywhere. Like, I didn't think we had that many arrows, actually. That's a lot of arrows.
That's why you need a lot of arrows. If you get a surprise, you can go through them very quickly.
Yep.
Just imagine if you've been an archer. Whoo! Whoo!
Double weapon proficiency.
Yeah. All right. So now, John, you said one of them did get away.
Yes.
Okay. Was that like the one near the back?
It was a one of the lowest ranking people.
Okay.
It was the second to the back, I think.
Okay. So he turned tail and ran south on horseback.
Yeah.
Specifically, it was number 5.
Okay. All right.
Did,
which
or did he go
is-
south? I thought he went north.
Why would we go north?
He went. I never said which direction he went.
Right. He would have gone south.
Yeah.
He would have gone south.
But that was Connor McCaskill.
Connor McCaskill.
Yep, he's the one who escaped.
Connor McCaskill of the Clan McCaskill.
He didn't escape. We let him go to warn
The spread the
others to not mess with us.
To send,
yes, that
To
always
spread-
works in your
to
favor.
spread-
Here's a
Kill with
question.
one blow.
Did he see any of them?
Oh yeah.
Okay. He saw them.
He probably saw River
Okay.
and Farhad from above.
Okay.
yeah. Torin was he
Too
was
far back.
But
So
none of
far
them made
back.
it all the way into the inner box cabin.
No.
No.
Yeah, I
they
didn't
didn't
think
They didn't
would.
make it past the ankle breaker.
Yeah. Okay.
They made it like a few feet
Yeah.
past the ankle.
Oh, it's
breaker.
it's called a massacre for a reason. and realize that guy was like the leader, was 9th level. So experience points galore. All right.
5.
So let's
You got
hear
5 experience points.
let's hear your perspective, your character's perspective.
Well, he they saw one guy unfortunately saw through his illusion, and so they all started marching through. And I just waited until everything else went off. You know, they got the trap in the back with the fire and people screaming, and there's arrows going at the other guy, the other end. I stunned two guys in the middle, which slowed down the charge of the guys behind them, and then the retreat of those same guys after they decided that, you know, their second in command was burning alive, and you know, they realized that they weren't going to make it. And it slowed them down enough to finish everybody off except the one. River was in some melee with one guy, so she'd be the only person of us that got any wounding.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's right. Farhad, because you screwed up on the surprise round, so you reversed that.
Yeah.
They shot back at him, but then you guys
Right, realized,
no,
no, that
surprise,
wasn't right. He shouldn't have gotten hit at all.
Okay, yeah, okay. So River's the only one who got hurt.
Yeah.
How bad?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if she even got hurt, but she's
I
the
don't
only one.
think she did,
She's the one
no.
who could have gotten hurt.
Because she was close, melee.
I think one guy like went to fight her, and everyone's dying. He's like,
But
"Eh."
as far as that ring works, if she catches this later, it makes you unobtrusive. Like, if you're looking around, you don't stand out from the crowd. It's not really camouflage, and it's not really invisibility, but you're not doing anything to attract attention to yourself, so you just kind of blend in with the surrounding environment or whatever that is.
That's less
But it's
useful
not
in
camouflage.
combat, but very useful for her character.
Yes.
Which would have been nice to use that a couple times by now.
Well, she's been trying to, but she's been a little confused about what unobtrusive means.
Yeah.
It just means she just doesn't stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, I think we kind of interpreted it as...
Yeah, you guys
it
are
was-
interpreting it as camouflage slash
it was weaker than
blurriness.
invisible.
Yeah, it's not that at all. It's that basically their eyes just kind of go over her if there's other things to distract. But it doesn't make her invisible or camouflaged.
So it's like unrequited love.
No.
You know, they
Not
just don't even notice
even-
that you...
No.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. Unrequited love, they both know each other.
So, Joe, let's hear Farhad's perspective of how that went. Sorry.
Yeah, I think... but yeah, the one guy got away. God, I was gonna say something.
But what we care about is your character's perspective. We don't just need another recounting of what happened. We want to hear what your character's experience was.
Well, yeah. That's pretty much it. I mean, he did manage to throw some daggers and knives.
And how did you feel about that?
He was fine with it. He didn't like that he dropped one, but
Okay.
and
pick him up.
And he's not very good, but he's
Right.
he's decent.
Okay. All right. You done?
If I think of what else I
Okay.
wanted to add, I'll raise my hand.
Yeah. Okay. Farhad, let's hear your character's perspective.
It was very exciting. They came to us exactly as we had planned, and as they crept into the tight little canyon, I was ready to ambush them, but I got too excited. I could not wait, and so I shot the biggest one I could find, and I didn't stop shooting until they were all dead. I only shot the one, but they were all dead by the time I was done shooting.
Moisha.
We could have died. We could have all died.
You got PTSD already.
Did Moisha do anything? I know you kept holding your action.
She shot a few arrows.
Alicia did eventually.
Yeah, she shot some arrows.
He. Moisha's a he.
Yeah.
Katie's not, but
Well,
Moisha
yeah.
is. Okay.
The player made the character.
Yes. All right. So,
But Alicia did get some shots out there. he mostly is just grateful to all of the gods that might exist that he did not die.
Okay, good. So now the one is ridden off to the south, down the road at a gallop. Carcasses. What did you guys? The horses? Did they run off? Did you kill the horses? What did
We
you do
don't
to the
know.
horses?
The horses were parked, and they haven't done.
Parked, like on the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're actually trying to get to the horses, and they got shot down before they got to the horses. Only one of them got to the horses. So
Okay.
the horses.
So the horses would have. He would have called a command. The horses would have followed the rider running
Okay.
south. So they would have all the horses would have run south, following him shortly after him. He would have yelled a command and followed. Everybody that was either near the mouth or outside that could have heard that command, who was at the mouth or outside, could have heard that command.
I'm not sure what I've been.
Everybody but Torn.
Well, I was heading towards the mouth because I was basically running to where I thought it would be safest, which would be by Farhad and Moisha. So I was moving that direction. I'm not sure how
Okay.
far I would
You
have
probably
gotten.
wouldn't have heard it over your running and stuff, though.
Yeah.
So that'd
Everybody
be-
else was?
Yeah, that'd be River was down on the ground,
Okay.
and me, Moisha, and
So each of
and
you roll
Farhad
your
were up
intelligence.
Woohoo! 7!
Yeah, I rolled 19 over 15.
18 out of 15.
So yeah,
For once, Farhad passes an intelligence check.
do you want me to roll for?
So each of you that passed an
River, or
intelligence
you got
check,
that?
what?
You want me to roll for River, or you got that?
She'll just have to roll when she's here. It's
Okay.
not all. We just need one of you to have caught it.
Okay, well,
So
Farhad.
anybody who succeeded in their intelligence check heard the command that was given that you then saw the horses go running after him. You follow him running south. So whatever the command was, you guys, if you succeeded in your intelligence check, you now are familiar with that command.
Heal.
It wasn't heal, but it was
Lauren,
it was
Lauren.
basically follow me.
there's a command for making the horses just follow you.
Oh, is it Lauren?
Like all the other commands, the word is Mordred, but said with a particular inflection.
This isn't Chinese. Because Chinese does that.
Mordred to follow.
Mordred?
Yeah.
As opposed
So
to
is that different
Malkovich,
from the run
Malkovich,
command?
Malkovich. What's that?
Is that different from the run command?
Yes.
All right then, the
Yeah.
follow
And
command.
it was a combination of commands, whatever, but it's worth noting. Okay.
Okay.
So, dead bodies.
Yay!
What do you do?
Uh,
Who is closest? River would be the closest, but I'm gonna have her lick her wounds, whatever they are. So how about?
Order of initiative was Moisha, Farhad.
Combat's over. Initiative's over.
Okay.
So we'll just do it the round robin thing here. So you're running up. You were running up the canyon to the
Yeah.
mouth there. So you come running up in a pant.
Hey, so I set the trash off and I think someone got burned up to death. Oh my god, I think my god. Why do you even go into the fire? I mean, there's obviously fire. I had to try jumping in. That doesn't make any sense. I think they have more sense. Oh wait, the horses follow the command to run away? Well, that's good. I'll make a note of that.
Let's know that.
Okay.
Well, that one that got away, he'll be back with more numbers, I'm sure. We should pack up camp immediately and have someone let them know back at camp to.
They'd already, Karn and Janer had already packed up to flee.
Okay,
So you-
somebody let them know what happened because
all they've heard is screams and
I'll do
yells
it.
and carnage, but
Torn turns around and begins running back the other way.
all right.
Okay.
Revive the coward knight. We're still
As
waiting
you're-
to see if you can fight.
As you're running, you see up on the hillside. Remember earlier that morning, the little monkey up there. It's up at the tree line up on the hillside there. It left the little copper mirror up on that ridgeline, up above the cave and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think Farhad saw that too.
Yeah, a couple of you did, but you just reminder that because it's been 2 weeks, that monkey looted through all of your stuff and took 1 earring and 1 copper mirror. It still has the earring stuck in its ear hole because it didn't know better.
I think to myself, that's what you get for being nice to
And
an
the
animal.
copper mirror is still sitting up there. You kind of a glint bounces back to you as a reminder, just so you know.
Being nice to an animal.
If you want, it is retrievable. You can climb up there and get it.
All right,
So
so-
it would need to be somebody with good climbing ability or a rope.
So at this point, Talk would carefully climb down and start.
I didn't
checking out whatever.
I didn't hear from Farhad and Moishe yet.
So I'm climbing.
Yeah, you're
Farhad
climbing
is
out.
gonna elegantly slide down the rocky hillside.
It's not a
down to the
hillside.
bonfire.
It's sheer. I mean, it's a drop.
He's gonna.
Monkey technique feather fall.
He's gonna beautifully bounce several times. and roll.
Yeah, that you could try a climb check because it is a sheer climb, and you would rain rocks down on anybody who's below you. You gonna do a
Cool.
climb check?
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Da, 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 da. Where's my climb? Do. It's 85%. I think I could probably do that. Do. Where is the screen that's there? It's a 40. Boop, boop,
All right,
boop.
you're scurrying on down quite well. All right, Moishe.
Mauritius talking on mute. Mauritius goes back the way he came.
All right, so you just kind of mosey back to the box canyon. Okay. So how are you climbing down?
If there's any safe way up here, I'll climb down. If not, then I'll.
Without a rope or exceptional climbing skill, it is
Then
not safe.
I'm taking the long way.
Okay, so you're heading back to the
Sure,
box
you
canyon.
could try.
Okay.
No, I'm not. No, it was climbing up. Remember, climbing up that I knocked myself cold.
Yes. Yeah, he kept trying over
If
and
you go
over.
down, you're guaranteed to make it.
Is this when the
your destination.
zombies start? When they all rise it back up
Yeah.
to the zombies?
All right. So I guess you would come running back into the box canyon first. You see Karn there, mounted on horse with his lance ready and shield and everything ready. He sees you come running, and he's got his visor flipped up at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Charge!
No. They run off. One ran off.
You see him relax his shoulders a little bit.
All
Like
right.
he's getting
So
ready to charge.
we threw the fire and the rocks down, and we shot a lot of arrows. And it looks like
He said one got away.
yeah, he made it to his horse, I guess, and they all took off. All the horses and him.
Ja!
Oh,
Starts galloping his horse until he gets to the canyon. He has to slow down, and then he gets a little ways, and then there's a pile of rocks and bodies, and he stops his horse because he can't get through. And you hear him cursing under his breath. Those of you who are above. Get this mess out of the way! We need to stop them before they get reinforcements!
gosh. Looking at this big pile of rocks and corpses, like,
So how's he gonna get it? How are you guys gonna get all your horses out of here? Okay. Yeah, you're
The rocks
gonna.
weren't that big. The rocks weren't that big. I wouldn't be able to have moved them so easily.
Well, they were ranging in size like this, right?
Yeah.
And they were.
And the whole thing causes a rock file. You push one rock
You're-
over.
I mean, it can be cleared,
Oh, yeah.
but you're gonna have to take some time to clear it. Depends on what concerted effort you make. All right. So Karn was hoping to go chasing after. Is stuck midway wherever in the canyon.
there's probably at the leg breaker where there's rocks and fire.
Yeah, so you're running over and you see him down there grumbling. Do you have anything to say to him or keep going towards the box canyon?
Hi.
Looks up at you with his helm with difficulty. Flipped up visor.
Everyone's dead but one.
Let's get this mess out of here!
All right. It's just, man.
He starts backing his horse slowly, backs out of the canyon.
I go to the farthest way from the smoky, burny corpse, and
Well, okay, wait your turn.
Okay.
Moisha, you've arrived at the box canyon. You saw Karn charge into the canyon, the narrower part of the canyon.
If he's never gonna get through, I better go start helping move stuff.
Okay, so you're working your way down, all right. And Farhad, you're now down at the bottom of the canyon on top of the rubble and stuff.
I go directly for the guy who has like 15 of my arrows in him.
Captain Pincushion.
That's not the one who's burning.
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you have to cross? Do you have to get past the person who's burning to get?
No,
to
the person that burnings is
Way in the back.
Yeah, they
Okay.
didn't get very far past.
Yeah, you can get very far up the narrow canyon. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you are now at the porcupine corpse.
Yes. I want to salvage any arrows I can and loot the body.
If it's 50% breakage factor, right? I think
Yes.
That's the standard. So just roll 50%. If you roll 50 or lower, it does not break. If you roll 51 or higher, it does break for each arrow. Just quickly roll that for yourself.
Would you like me to roll that for 15 arrows, or would you like me to roll?
Roll for
Or
15.
do you want to just give me 7?
Roll for 50. No, just go ahead and roll because you might get all of them.
Okay.
But just roll for yourself and be honest about it and just recoup what you can. So that's
It's. Am I going for low or high?
low. 50 or lower does not break. 51 or
Cool.
higher does break.
So like the amount of stress that was put on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, trying to work it out and so yeah. And the Mordredian shock arrows, which I did upload the specs for that. Sorry, I forgot to send you that. So just so you have the info, it is on the site now under the wiki. So on Beru.world, wiki. Oh, where the heck was it? Got such a long wiki here. There's images. Where did I put it? Or maybe I didn't put it. Maybe I did it under Heroes of the Mist. Oh, I know I created it for you. Shoot. All right, I'll just tell you in my notes. So the Mordredian shock arrows, they also have them in bolts for the crossbows, are far less deadly than the death arrows, obviously.
Obviously.
But they are reusable.
Thanks to an error in rules understanding, we saw what those look like without any consequences. That was
Yeah.
that was
Steel tip black shaft, silver color fletching, but not real silver, with a lightning bolt etched on the shaft. They do normal 1d6 damage as per normal bow arrow. But they do an additional d10 electrical shock damage. Save versus spell reduces to half, round up. And then they have to roll a con check. If they fail, they fall to the ground unconscious for 1 to 10 rounds. If they succeed, they're doubled over in pain and stunned for 1 to 6 rounds. They can only do defensive parry action and can only move 5 feet per round while stunned. It is reusable, but those are only a 25, or they only have a 25% chance of breaking. So those you roll a 75 or lower and they don't break.
Oh, because they're more durable.
They're more durable, yeah. They're more rugged.
Question.
Yes.
On multiple uses, do they still maintain their shock
Yes.
ability?
Yes, it's kind of a kinetic recharge. When you shoot, they don't work. They don't work like if you stab by hand, but when you
Right.
shoot, that
So they're not necessarily like a scroll.
they
They're not
are
a
magical.
use thing.
They are magical, but they require inertia.
Yeah, cool.
So
But they're not one shot, you've lost that power.
correct. They will keep working if you keep shooting them.
That's one of the most powerful magical arrows in the existence of the universe.
No, not in this multiverse.
Yeah.
And that was very funny, Joe, about the multiverse, many verses,
Yeah.
because of Arthurian legend and such. All right, yeah, because you guys haven't seen the multiverse yet in this. We've got a ways to go for that. All right, and it's the same basically for the Mordredian death arrows too. They're the higher quality and all that too. So, all right. So he's looting which one?
Captain.
He's looting the captain.
Captain. All right.
Cadmail Telenopoulos, and actually he's only a lieutenant.
Yeah, lieutenant. Sorry. So so Cadmail Telenopoulos. So he's you've noticed that he's definitely Grekos. Much darker skin, curly dark hair.
He's Greek to him.
What?
It's all Greek.
That's
to us.
Greek to him. So he's got a long sword, a horseman's flail, a short bow, 10 normal arrows, and 10 Mordredian death arrows. He also has a dagger. He is in chainmail with a metal shield. And, of course, has a pretty bulging money pouch, which I forgot to detail.
Okay, I fell behind it.
Yeah.
10 death arrows, 10 regular arrows,
Dagger.
Mordredian arrows.
Yeah, dagger, chainmail,
Chainmail.
metal shield,
And
of
a money pouch.
bulging money pouch.
Cool. That's mine.
You earned that, and you earned whatever you loot off that guy. You put in the effort.
Is there anything
The
distinctive?
armor's going to need a little bit of repair. It is magical, but it is going to need some repair.
It's what?
It is magical chainmail, but it is going to need some repair.
It's just got a
All
few
right.
holes.
It's
just
got a
some
lot of
patches.
holes in it. It needs a few rings here and there replaced.
Yeah. What else?
Every item that you gathered from him has some kind of runes on them indicating that they are enhanced in some way.
Cool.
And all of them are usually with like a black pommel and silver lacing, actual silver trim and such, as it seems to be part of their uniform and their equipment.
They're very focused on their branding.
Yeah, good branding, consistent branding.
No, that's filigree. Branding is when you burn the flesh.
All right.
They do that too.
Yes. Okay. Who's coming in the canyon? I guess you are first into the canyon. No, or where were you going?
I'm back into the canyon,
Yeah.
by the flame pit, or
Well, you notified Karn.
Yeah, you already did that.
so the thing I'm going to do is
Karn's backing out of the canyon.
begin moving rocks with my 7 strength.
I'm not going to tell Janera.
He already shouted. She was right there.
Oh, she was there
right
too.
there
Okay, I
behind Karn.
I thought she was a little bit further back.
Yeah, she's in the cave, but she could hear all that. So
Okay.
Pretty
he
much
was
try
shouting it.
moving rocks from the far side, from the side. I push on one side, so the other side should be less. I try moving things so you can clear
All
a
right.
foot map that way.
So who all is going to help try to clear the way versus spending time looting? Far out spending time looting.
Not I, said the duck.
Okay, you're going to be looting.
I'm going to be looting.
Okay, all right.
Because I can lift a few arrows or a sword. Not so much.
It is break time.
Yep. Let me just figure out who's doing what here briefly. So you're going to be looting who?
Whoever I can get to. But I was going to add, since I'm going back through the camp anyway, I'm going to grab like a flask of water or something so we can put out the flaming guy.
Okay, is a flask going to be enough?
Well, I was thinking bucket, but
There
I
is
was
a
like, do we have
small
a bucket?
stream there, so a bucket, you don't really, unless you have an itemized bucket, but you could just take a small shield and splash the
We have a
stream
bucket.
onto it.
All right. I'll take the bucket.
Okay, good.
I made sure we got it.
Moisha, what are you going to do? You're going to be clearing rocks or looting or something else?
Moisha has been clearing rocks.
Okay, so Moisha's clearing rocks, Torin is clearing rocks, Karn is finished backing out of the canyon, Farhad is looting, and I'm going to assume River is helping clear the canyon. So that's where we will leave it as we take a 10-minute break, and we'll be right back with Heroes of the Mist. And then we'll finally be underway with the story progression in the second segment, since we've spent a lot of time trying to clarify rules and just getting caught up where we're at.
The second half will be more exciting.
Be back in 10 minutes.
There's a moment.